I bought my wife a giant ring rock because I invented the slingshot. Buying Escalades, hot tubs, and fat rims is only the beginning, and everything I do is always about winning. This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West, answering more questions today for the Power Project, brought to you by HowMuchYouBench.net, the Slingshot, and the only strength magazine in the world, thepowermagazine.com. It is 10 degrees here in Sacramento, California, here in Davis, California, and I am about ready to pass out and die just right on the side of the street. And so that's why I'm shooting this this video from inside the car with the air conditioning blaring. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear above the AC. The question for today is from Angel Fernandez. There's actually two questions. One's from Angel Fernandez and the other one's from Frank, believe it or not. Angel Fernandez, his question is about the back squat, and he wants to know about relaxing on the box. And there's just always so much controversy over this. There's a lot of controversy that swirls around the box squat. First and foremost, let me just tell you, the box squat is a very effective form of squatting. There are many different types of squats that you can perform. The great Eddie Cohn used high bar and low bar training. A lot of the guys from years past use high bar and low bar. You see a lot of Olympic lifters use front squats and high bar squats. There's a lot of variations that you can utilize with squatting to increase your squat. And the key thing to remember here is sometimes people will say, oh, well, when I go to a meet, I'm not going to have a box. Well, when you go to the meet, you're not going to do a freaking front squat either. Right? When you go to the meet, you're not going to try the heaviest squat possible without a belt. You're not going to do a lot of the things you're going to try in training to improve yourself that you're going to actually perform when the test needs to be taken on game day. The test, not a bunch of tests. Remember that, kids. So he wants to know about relaxing in the box squat. And in my opinion, a box squat is to be performed with a little bit wider stance than what you would normally use on a regular squat. A little bit wider. How much is a little bit wider? About 1 to 2 inches per foot. So we're talking 2 to 4 inches wider than what your normal stance is. If that hurts, then don't go that wide. Go in a little bit closer. How wide can you handle? That is up to your skill set. If you have a good skill set, if you are hypermobile or extremely mobile through the hips, you have strong hips, strong healthy hips, like a baby, then you're going to be able to swing those knees out and get your knees out to where your feet are. So that's a good indication of how wide you should be going. If you can get your knee to go out by where your foot is or over top of your ankle, something like that. Also in a box squat, some of the key things I feel that are important with a box squat is that you want your back to be straight, pretty much neutral, and you want to get like a little bit of arch, especially out of the rack, especially for those guys that are using 500, 600, 700 pounds. Some of the big boys, you're going to have to really arch, because by the time you arch and by the time you get that weight out of there, you're going to be slammed back into the neutral position. So that's what we're looking for. Looking for a neutral spine. We're looking for you to force your knees out. Actively force your knees out. Actively flex your ass even when you unrack. So if you're somebody who's walking the weights back, it's going to be a little different for you. You're going to walk the weights back. Then you're going to screw your feet into the ground. And then you are going to start to perform the squat. But you want to kind of turn those glutes on before you ever start your descent. Some other things with the box squat is you don't want the knees to travel too far forward. And that's what makes a box squat different than a regular squat, or different than the type of squat that you're going to see an Ollie lifter do. An Olympic lifter, a lot of times they're going to shoot their knees forward quite a bit. And there's multiple reasons for this, but one of the main reasons for that is the fact that they're squatting so low. I mean, power lifters, let's just be honest, these guys are squatting lower than us. Can we just say it out loud? Is it really that big of a problem? Once you get to the box, You do not want to necessarily relax. I think that's a bad term, because relaxing with 400 or 500 pounds on your back doesn't sound like a smart maneuver, does it? What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stop and then start again. Stop and then start again. It's a static position overcome by a dynamic position. So static overcome by dynamic. I'm sorry, overcome by dynamic movement. But you want to try to overcome that static movement with as much explosive power as you possibly can. Now, if you just turn into a bag of shit on the box, how are you going to be able to explode up with everything you got? I know some of you guys are guilty of this. I've certainly done it many times. You ever just go to do a box squat and just totally like have a brain fart and just screw it up? And you move like shit, and it's only like, you know, it's only like 60, 70% of your max, like something you should normally crush. We saw a great example of that today at Super Training Gym from my boy, Damon Thurman. Damon Thurman went up to 470 pounds, I believe, because of the extra bar weight. 470 pounds, 465, somewhere in that range, plus 200 pounds of chains with the cambered bar on a box squat. He went to squat down, he got stapled to the box. Meanwhile, the set before it, he did it for a pretty easy double. Came back again, did it for another pretty easy double. Then he came back, added 20 more pounds, or 10 pounds each side, 20 more pounds total. And then again, performed another good set of a single, I believe, or maybe even a double. But the point is that can happen to you sometimes. You gotta remain tight. You gotta remain focused, and you have to keep yourself hungry during these workouts. You gotta keep yourself fired up during these workouts. If you feel like you're starting to lose it and starting to fatigue, guess what? Those are the championship sets. Those are the championship rounds. That's the type of shit that's going to make you better. When Damon started to slow down, he started to maneuver a little bit. His movement patterns were off a little bit. I said, this is the shit that makes you stronger. And that is the truth. So find, you know, when you get into those sets and you look around and nobody else wants to do any more sets, be the last man standing, take charge, and hammer out a few extra sets. That's normally what I do. Sometimes I don't always lift more than everybody, but I always try to make sure that I get in more overall work than everybody. Tristan Scholl normally kicks my ass on box squats, but a lot of times to make up for that, I will perform extra sets and things like that. But so to completely answer your question, one of the best ways to mimic this is to get a chunk of foam. I know a lot of CrossFit gyms have what's called an ab mat. You can order one off of roguefitness.com. Many gyms have what's called an ab mat. If you don't have access to an ab mat, you could use any type of foam. But you're going to want to have probably a nice chunk of foam and not something real thin. So what you're going to do with this chunk of foam, that is, how big is that, guys? 8 inches? Bam. You're going to want to have a nice chunk of foam that's like maybe the thickness of a telephone book, or about half the thickness of a telephone book. And you're going to want to sink all the way into the foam and then drive back up. Sink all the way into the foam, boom, drive back up. Sink all the way into the foam, drive back up. If you can't find any foam or anything like that, just go into like a sleep train and start practicing your box squats on their bed, you know. And if they start asking questions, just tell them, Mark Bell sent you from the Power Project, and you're on a mission to get better, more betterist. We had another question about your feet being straight or your feet being pointed out, and that was by Frank. To be frank with you, Frank, you're going to have to do what you need to do in order to get those knees out. You're saying with the feet straight, they're having trouble getting your knees out. Well, look, whenever you get advice from a coach or from a person such as myself or Kelly Starrett or Jesse Burdick or any of these great coaches that you have available, Louis Simmons, any of these great coaches that you have available, have at your fingertips, realize what they're saying is they're trying to give you what's optimal, what they feel is best. And that might not be best for you. That might actually suck for you. Tristan Scholl, I try to get him to squat with his feet a little bit straighter, and it tweaks his knee. So what are we going to do? Or just wear away his kneecap and have him be in tons of knee pain. Ryan Spencer, same thing. Clearly, there's probably a flaw somewhere else in their body. Treston would not admit to having any flaws, but a lot of times it has to do with the ankle or the your heel cords are too tight. There's a lot of great information on all this on Kelly Starrett's website, mobilitywod.com. Mobilitywod.com. If you don't have his book, I suggest that you purchase his book. If you don't want to spend money, then just go to his website. Tons of free information there, and he's going to teach you how to get more flexible cankles and loosen up some of that area so that you can keep your foot a little bit straighter. Why is it important to keep your foot straight or straight-ish? In my opinion, and the information I've gotten from Kelly and some of the studies that he has seen, and this is testing, and it's not always what happens in science is not always practical. But what I feel from doing this, and what Kelly says and preaches, and what some others have felt, is that when your feet are straighter, you're able to produce more torque and produce more force through your extremities. It's the same thing when you set up on the bench. If you leave your elbow way out here on the bench to unrack the bench, a little bit harder to produce force and to get everything down there in tight. And what if I punched you like this? It would be kind of weird, right? But if I have my arm turned in, get some rotation in there, and really screw my shoulder into the bench, now I got tons of power to really drive through. The same thing is true with the squat. So you have your foot straightish, dig your feet into the floor, spin those feet out a little bit as if you're on a as if you're on a towel. You can try this on a towel on a wooden surface, and you can just spin your feet out, and you can feel your feet grabbing the floor, and you can feel your ass turn on, which is amazing, by the way. So work on getting your feet straightish or straighter. It will help you to increase the strength of your hips. Be cautious that it doesn't hurt and jack up your knee. So be smart in that regard. And also make sure you're watching supertraining.tv. We had a great squat session this week, so that video will be posted up pretty soon. You're going to see some great examples of some box squats. And that is it from supertraining.tv.